Hello fronds, and welcome to the very first episode of the Plant Quest podcast, brought to you by me, Lauren, and my partner Joe. Each week we'll be digging into a different plant-related topic. Our first episode focuses on myself and Joe and how we got into the hobby, and we hope you will enjoy sitting with us as we spill a little dirt. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us for our new adventure into podcasting. It's gonna be, it's gonna be a journey, definitely. Like, this is Joe and I's first time trying something. Stick around to the end of this episode to hear about our first few attempts at recording as well, which ended up quite funny.
What do you mean? This is the first take?
Oh, sorry. Yes, this is the first take. We are very professional. Thank you very much for joining our podcast. But yeah, stick around to the end if you want to hear a bit more about that. But first of all, I guess what we really wanted to do was just kind of go through who we are and why you might want to join us in a conversation about plants.
Yeah, so I'm not only a hobbyist, but I'm also a professional horticulturalist. I'm a botanical horticulturalist at a garden in London. I've been doing it for 5 years now, but I started out voluntarily in Liverpool up north, and that led on to a park ranger position in a 60-acre parkland. Very
nice. Did you have to chase a lot of bears who were stealing picnic baskets?
No, not at all, and I didn't even get my own shotgun. Can you believe it?
That is terrible. Do you get people ask when you tell people you used to be a park ranger, or when you were a park ranger, did you get people making Yogi Bear jokes all the time?
They'll be like, "Oh, have you got a horse?"
Oh, right, so they went that avenue.
Helicopter, and because you see all this stuff on mainstream media of like park rangers in America, and they're really cool.
Oh,
and
right,
then,
like national parks in America.
Yeah, I mean, our official title was like park warden, so I guess it's not as great, is it?
Warden's kind of a bit more threatening, I think.
Really?
Yeah, because, like, I'm the warden. I don't know, like with your truncheon and stuff like that. I don't know. Did you have a truncheon?
No.
Oh, well, never mind then.
I had a garden hoe and a trowel to ward off any enemies.
A trowel?
Yeah.
To ward off, when you say enemies, you mean chavs, right?
Yeah, chavs, yeah. No, the hoe did good at getting rid of them.
I bet the hose would do pretty well on them too.
Yeah, lure them away.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then what did you do after that? After you left your illustrious career as a park ranger?
Yeah, so park rangering was great, but it was council owned and it was very slash and burn horticulture. So that means it's very sort of like, get rid of the weeds, make it look pretty, make it quick and efficient, and there was less interest on their plants themselves. It was like, does it fill the border? Is it evergreen? Will it provide year-round interest? Get it in there and get it done.
I can imagine it's a lot less like science-based as well, or like kind of different to what you went on to do afterwards. Like, it's sort of like you didn't need to know the whys of why things were done, you just needed to know that you had to do it.
Exactly, it's that. And my two colleagues were great. They're very knowledgeable about what they did, sort of thing, but it was very events focused. So, and I really wanted to develop the horticultural science of it. I wanted to know the botany. I wanted to know why we did certain things a certain way, not just why the task is done, sort of thing, why I should do it now, in regards to like later. So I pursued a training program down south, an apprenticeship, which meant that I'd be working full time and I'd be getting a free education, which is a big change from like being in crippling debt from my university studies. Like, I didn't want to go down that route. There were them routes available to do like a Royal Horticultural Society qualification, but this was a really great alternative to that. So
learning on the job,
learning on the job and off the job, and every other free time you sort of have on the job.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time studying. It was very intensive. Like, I would say it was like, because you were working were you working 40? You had one college
35 hours a week normally, and then like once a month I'd have a college day. But I actually, this might sound really silly, that like a level 2 qualification, like equivalent to like 5 GCSEs, was more intensive than my degree. even though like during my degree I was holding down a part-time job at the same time, like, I really do feel that it was more taxing. Like
you definitely worked harder and spent more time studying, and like you were obviously learning on the job as well than like anyone I knew when I was at university either. Like, I mean, that's a huge generalization, of course, because plenty of people actually did put work into the university courses, but like it was just the amount of work that you were given week on week for learning like Latin and kind of like not just like the science aspects of it and like the botanical Latin and stuff, but like the practical elements of like the health and safety stuff, and how do you dig up stuff properly, how do you prepare a tree, how do you do XYZ. It's like all of these things are like combining into just what you have to do every day and what you're doing after work as well.
Yeah, that's it. Like it was like essay a week and a lot of stuff on top of it. Like we did plant identifications every month of like 40 plants, so it was like you were tested on the family, the genre, the species, its origin, how it's propagated, stuff like that, and you'd have 40 plants to learn. And I totaled it up one time because I was really interested as to what the total was, and it was like 480 plants over 2 years.
So you can, in theory, identify at minimum 480 plants just by looking at them.
Well, certainly, because like you learn most of the plants through actually working with them on the ground, whereas these predetermined plants on the identification test weren't plants I was familiar with. It was like, oh yeah, let's pick this one.
That must make it harder to remember them though, because you're not familiar with like seeing them on a day-to-day basis. So.
That's it as well. Like seeing plants on a day-to-day basis makes you so familiar with them. Like owning a plant as well in regards to houseplants, like that's so much when you form a bond with that plant and you've been through things, good or bad.
You've seen shit with that plant.
Yeah. We've seen it wilt, you've seen it cry, you've seen it die, or maybe not die.
And then resurrected it.
Because
that's exactly what happened.
You got to go through that journey, and then you're like, yeah, I know you. You're Willigia mirabilis. Yeah, we've been through some shit. But like, I find that learning stories is like the best way to come to grips and remember the Latin. So like, knowing its origin story, its botanical origin, but also the meaning behind the Latin is really great. It's just about forging those relationships, whether it be with a houseplant or with like some inanimate plant you've never heard of before. So yeah, is that. But yeah, that
was your apprenticeship though.
Yeah, so that was the apprenticeship. It was really good, and I got employed by the same institution going on to look after one of the glass houses behind the scenes. We look after palms, legumes, plectranthus, which are related to the lavender, like Lamiaceae family, and yeah, that's been 1 year now.
Damn, time flies.
Yeah, I can't. But when it came to the 12-month mark, I was like, damn, I've already been here a year.
And that's after being in the same place, but like you were moving. So when you were doing your apprenticeship, you were like moving around zones, weren't you? So you were constantly like in different glass houses, in the outdoor areas, and doing a mixture of things.
That's it. So when I was doing my apprenticeship, I was rotated on every 3 months, and by the time you get to the grips with the placement and familiar with the people, you kind of like moved on as well.
You get uprooted.
Yeah, you get uprooted. Yeah.
Yeah. What was your favorite placement on your apprenticeship, since you get to like, I guess it's kind of like a tapas of horticulture. You get to like try a little bit of everything.
That's it. And that's the great thing about the apprenticeship and similar sort of studies. It's like, because it's work-based, you get to experience everything and you get to sort of like find your niche. So for me personally, I really enjoyed the arboretum and the orchid placement the most, sort of thing.
So arboretum, I've asked you about this before because this wasn't a term that I'd ever heard before, but arboretum is like, I guess what you would think of as like in a normal park. It's about trees, right? And well, how did I phrase it before? It's like a museum of trees.
Yeah.
A living museum of trees.
That's it. So as opposed to a forest, which is an assemblage of native flora, like it's 4 or 5 different trees en masse. This is like a living collection of 1 or 2 or 4 specimens of a certain tree to exemplify its growth habit, and there will be like collections of genre across the park.
Genre of trees.
So yeah,
the horror trees.
Yeah,
the romance trees. The science fiction trees.
Genre, as in genus.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So, for example, oak tree is its own genus of Quercus.
Quercus.
Yeah.
That's cute. I didn't know that.
So we'd have all the oaks together in one spot.
And how many oaks are there?
Oh, so...
Can I guess?
Yeah, go on.
10.
No, there are many more.
50. 50 oaks. 50 different types of oaks. Or 50 of the same oak.
No. There's many species of oak.
So there's 50
there's
species.
over 100.
100 species of oak.
Over 100. I don't know specifically, but over 100.
Okay, and like in the place you work as well, which I thought was really cool that I didn't even know before we went wandering in the Arboretum, there's like even like a redwood forest there as well, but there's only 2 different types of redwood. I know we're taking this like tree tangent here. I'm just interested because we went there recently and I was thinking about trees, but anyway, I feel like I've talked enough about trees. So you enjoyed working in the orchid section as well?
Yeah, the orchid section was a really big eye-opener. I was actually really hoping that I would be put in the orchid section because it's a kind of like a pick and mix of which sections you'll actually be put in. Because say there's like 30 sections and I have 3 months placements in each of the sections. It's not likely that you'll be able to choose all of them or get all of them. That's sort of thing.
Right, yeah.
And it's a very highly desirable placement as well. Like everyone wants it because of the lineage of orchids and the sort of like the past craze sort of thing.
And they're really cute as well. Like they're prettier than like legumes.
Yeah, exactly. Or peas.
Or peas.
Yeah. So yeah, the orchid section was really great. Like they had 5 different zones with each with their own specific climate. So it ranged from like tropical to subtropical to temperate. And it was really cool because they have these like moving desks which are each like 30 meters in length, and each of these like massive tables has got like hundreds and hundreds of orchids on them.
Right. Okay.
And so yeah, watering them's interesting
because you got to walk for 40 meters to find the one you need to water.
Well, no, I mean you'll walk to every single one or check every single one, and it's just difficult sometimes when there's really small orchids because sometimes you can like push the tables too fast and then some of the pots like fall over.
Oh, the babies.
Yeah, but yeah.
Occupational hazard.
Yeah, exactly. Normally they're heavy enough to like stay still. It's just if you're a bit too.
That's cool. So, I guess talk about what you moved on to then, because you stayed, like you said, you stayed at the same organization and now you work with palms and legumes. Not as interesting as orchids, unfortunately. Or are they? You could educate us now and tell us how interesting legumes are.
Yeah, so after I finished my apprenticeship, I stayed on at the organisation and continued working as an employee, assisting in the management of one of the behind-the-scenes glasshouses. So we supply the palms, legumes, cycads and plectranthus to the various glasshouses when they need it. Because the thing is with the collections that we have out there on public display, for every one plant you see, there's 4 behind the scenes ready to take its place if it looks subpar, be it like pest and diseases.
Oh my god, if it becomes naff.
Yeah, exactly. So if it's not in flower anymore with the orchids, then we've got orchids to go out there and put out. Of course, like there's exceptions to that rule in that if it's part of like some kind of like pillar or some kind of like installation, it's likely that it'll probably just be left there.
It makes me feel a bit better though as like a home plant owner and carer that like when you go to these amazing botanical gardens or parks and you see all these beautiful flowers on display, that actually it's a bit of a cheat because like they're not just looking like that amazing all the time. They will have their own life cycles and just be replaced with something a bit better. So if you're having a time at home where your orchids just dropped off and it looks like a dead stick, because they literally just look like dead sticks, and it's like, well, I'm just one leaf and a stick for 11 months out of the year, and then that 1 month that has like those beautiful flowers, that like you're not a failure because like that's just what orchids look like.
Yeah, it's about appearing to be the best.
So it's all fake?
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, there's a lot of like care and cultivation that goes into it, but at the end of the day, you're forcing that plant to be in an environment it doesn't particularly really want to be in, because it's not where it spent hundreds of thousands of years sort of like acclimatizing to that specific environment. Sometimes we get things wrong, sometimes we get things right, but nothing can replicate a natural setting, really.
Yeah, original habitat.
Exactly.
That's cool. Yeah. And I guess you kind of... How is it that, like, you know, you go to work and you kind of, like, work with all of these plants all day, and then you come home and then you have to deal with this forest as well? How is that?
Yeah, so... Yeah, prior to moving in with Lauren, I had about 15 or 16 orchids on my windowsill. I kind of like took over the other areas of the house as well in a flat share. So we had some other plants on the windowsills downstairs and
in the bathroom everywhere. As well.
Oh yeah. I had some Vanda orchids in the bathroom.
But the flatmates killed them because they kept opening the window and making them go cold.
Yeah, like how dare they not keep the humidity in the bathroom and like prevent mold from accumulating? Like, the plants should be the highest priority, right?
I agree. Like, yeah, they had no concern for those lovely orchids.
That's it. The house should be number 2 in the number of considerations.
Yeah, keep that room 80% humidity at all times.
That's it. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been a struggle, but yeah, I mean, it can be when you've got plants at work, then you've got more plants at home to look after. It can be quite satisfying because you're kind of like growing things on your own terms and you're exploring things you're not able, or like doing things in certain ways that you're not really able to do otherwise in your work setting because you're trying to be as efficient as possible.
You can like do more experimentation as well, I suppose.
Exactly, yeah. So I've really enjoyed working with experimenting with like wick watering sort of thing. So that's been a thing that I can't really do in work, but in a domestic setting it's a lot easier to do. And as well, like taking cuttings, so you can take cuttings in like non-effective, it's non-standard ways,
right?
Like I can experiment with grafting and air layering in ways that I wouldn't be able to do at work because of hazards and health and safety.
So you can go a bit more rogue out here.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it can be a bit draining, and the number one sort of like consideration in regards to how I approach plants and my motivation for keeping them at home as well. I mean, you're a big part of that. So
how's that?
Well, just because like you've got such a passion and enthusiasm to the way you approach things, and you're always so inquisitive as well, and it kind of like,
I'm just nosy.
It just inspires me to sort of like work harder and try different things to sort of like show off in a way to make you impressed.
You do like showing off, which is how we have ended up with like quite a few cool things, because you just like to experiment and try something that seems very, very ostentatious but actually turns out pretty nice. Yeah. But that's nice. And you know, like I guess a lot of stuff that we do at home you don't do at work. Like we are growing we're doing some container gardening on our patio outside, and we have like a little first floor kind of patio outside where our door is before we take the stairs down to like the street level. So we've filled up some containers with some courgettes and tomatoes, and also a lot of flowers as well. Like we've got some cosmos, and we've got some nice salvia bushes because we want to bring the bees and stuff to the garden as well, because otherwise we won't get any tomatoes. So
well, you say it's a garden, but it's just like a hard surface.
I like to call it a garden because it feels like when you're sitting in it feels like a garden.
It is now with the like we've got 50 plants out there now, and they're quite established, they're quite happy in their pots, but prior to us actually taking it over,
it was quite a barren, unfortunate looking space, I suppose, because we live above a chip shop as well, so we've got like the chip shop vents and everything that come out the back, and it's quite industrial, so it's like
we've got like, instead of getting the full-blown chip shop experience, you've got like chip shop infused with salvia flowers.
That's true. And it is nice actually, because like I think it's an unintended consequence. No, consequence makes it sound kind of bad, but an unintended result of planting the garden, it means that like we actually do smell the flowers rather than the chip fat. So London life be like.
Yeah.
It's been nice though, because it's like a nice place to sit outside where like we wouldn't just never have been able to get space. So
Yeah, because that's it. It's like we've tried to transform the area and make it into something that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. When I originally moved here, I didn't actually realize or appreciate just how much outdoor space we actually had, and it was like a favorable aspect. And I was like, if it's almost south-facing, maybe I can put some plants in here.
Yeah, like I don't think we typically really have that much space, but
And we just grew from strength to strength.
we grew from there. And now we have what, like 6 or 7 quite established tomato plants. We did have a bunch of peas and sweet peas.
The tomatoes are my favourite. Would you like to tell everyone the cultivar name?
No, I would not.
So the cultivated variety name of these tomatoes, it's Big Daddy.
Big Daddy tomatoes. And they're beef tomatoes, so they are big daddies, I suppose. And we're doing cherries now as
I love
well.
seeing him, how he comes along every day.
Oh,
I'm
God.
like, damn, he big.
It's so big. It's like, have you ever been bullied by a tomato just by looking at it? Because I have.
He's
like,
intimidated.
It's so intimidatingly large. And we're getting more and more all the time now. But that's been one thing that's been really nice. Like, and I think that a lot of other people may be able to relate to this, that now many of us are working from home, whereas before we spent a lot of our day commuting into like central spaces that we didn't have time to spend at home to kind of, I guess for want of a better word, like grow our collections like this. Like we definitely wouldn't have had as many houseplants as we do now if I had been working from an office in Central, because I just wouldn't be able to spend the time that it takes to water them all day, to check them for pests, to make sure that they're getting the right amount of light or the right amount of air. And now I do, and especially now I have time on my morning break every day. I go outside and I water all the vegetables and all the flowers out and making sure they're happy. Sometimes twist the pots around if their light's not like hitting them quite right, and just like taking the time to get to know them, I suppose, and like look after them, because now we have the time. And it's like when you're stuck in the same place constantly as well, it's nice to take some space out of that one room that you live and work in to go and look after something and nurture something. And the very, very real feeling of seeing something literally grow and growing something yourself and seeing it like kind of come to life is just so satisfying. And we've been doing it like on lots of different levels. So we have like some houseplants, and some of them we've grown from cuttings, like this monstera, like we grew it from a tiny cutting that we got that had one root at the start.
What's the variety of this one?
This is Monstera deliciosa, elbow variegata, and this one is a philodendron Florida ghost. Oh, and there's a syngonium here. Actually, I'll bring over the syngonium, which was flowering when we picked it up, but is not flowering now. And this is what I mean about orchids. It's like, I mean, at least that one's got some nice foliage, but like, it's just a leaf and a stick for like 11 months of the year until it produces those lovely flowers.
Look at those lovely pseudobulbs. They're so interesting. They're all the shapes.
Okay, well,
like I think some.
there's a stick here. There we go. There's the stick.
No, that's just like the flower cane.
Well, either way, so like we've been able to experiment with a lot of things that we wouldn't have normally done. And I think for me, like, I would say that the main thing that got me into this was Instagram. And that's so bad because it's such like fad chasing, but because you had always encouraged us to have plants in our home, it made me look up plants. And then when you look up plants on Instagram, it's like,
Yeah.
it's these plants.
You get these really super aesthetic plants, and then you're like, oh, that's great. I want one of them too. And then like, along comes the price tag.
Yeah, so that is why one of the reasons why we've been looking into cuttings and things like that, because it is much more affordable. And do you know what though, like if we hadn't been living together, I definitely would never have bought a cutting of a plant, because I never would have had the confidence to know that it would survive. Basically, I would have been so worried about like the conditions that it needs to be met, because like a few years ago when I started getting into plants, which was when the succulent craze really was kind of like in its height, I was like, I want a succulent. I can definitely not kill a succulent. And to my credit, side note, succulents are still alive. But I tried to propagate succulents because like the little leaves fall off, and it's like, I was like, I want to grow succulents for all of my friends. I want to have a succulent army. I'm ready for it. And everything I did, they rotted. Nothing that I did would make these succulents become more succulents. And there was nothing, like, I mean, what I was doing it wrong. Is I had them in a propagation tray. It was too moist in there, and it was too hot, and they weren't able to callus over and produce the new roots, which is the way you're supposed to do them. Just leave them out in the air to dry. They'll grow roots, and then you can plant them. Boom. But I was, like, thinking, like, oh, they need to be moist, and we're, like, tucking them into the soil at the bottom, and they're just rotting because they're too wet and they're too hot. But, like, now it's, like... Even if I don't strictly know how to do something, I don't worry about it anymore because I know that Joe will just rescue it.
Yeah, I mean,
To be blunt.
whilst you were still doing propagation with the succulents, that was like 2 years ago or something.
Yeah, nearly 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like when I was just starting out as well. So I was like, yeah, what you want to do is probably buy. I think humidity is your problem. Like you don't have enough moisture there, and just stick the propagules into a propagation chamber with wet soil, and you'll do great. Of course, what I didn't anticipate was like obviously I haven't propagated succulents before, so I didn't think about the callusing over. Like, you need to make sure that the leaf wound where you separated from the mother plant has completely scarred over, and then once that scarring has occurred, then it will send out roots and
to look for water.
Yeah, to look for water. That's it, and eventually produce like a little shoot. But yeah, that was quite new for me, and it was nice going on that journey together.
Yeah, I feel like because of like my natural curiosity into stuff that I don't know, and if I want to do something, I feel like that has always been a springboard for you to learn something new. So like, for example, the succulent stuff, it's like, Joe, I'm killing hundreds of succulents. Like, why is this happening? These are supposed to be easy. Every single website and like every single YouTube video is like, these are the easiest things to propagate. You cannot go wrong. And
didn't you say, you know how you're saying I'd never buy a cutting before we moved in together and became a bit more confident? I remember you buying like a bag of succulent leaves. Like, what happened to them?
No, yeah, I did actually buy a bag of succulent leaves from a seller on Etsy because I was like, I keep killing mine, but all of the reviews on this Etsy site say that these are all really good. And then I did grow a few. I think I probably got one succulent out of all of those leaves though, and I got about 30 leaves. That's how bad I was. But now, I feel like confidence is the key. Because if something doesn't work initially, I will try and do my best to investigate why it's not working. And I think that, you know, knowing that like you'll come rescue it if it fails is helped immensely. Like with the Monstera, it's doing great now.
Yeah, it's been really funny to go on this journey with you.
Yeah, and it is where like we're both learning stuff all the time. Like, because I'll come home, well, maybe not come home, so Joe will come home and I'll have been on Instagram for half an hour and I'd be like, oh my god, Joe, have you seen this plant?
No, you'll be working diligently on the role.
I must have this plant. I must know what this plant is. We must find a cutting and grow it. And he'll be like, well, what is it? And I'll be like, it's this. It looks cute. And he'd be like, well, there's so many things that you don't know about this plant that you don't even know if it can survive in our climate, or like what soil it needs, or if it's poisonous, or XYZ. You've just seen this thing on Instagram that you want, and I'm like, yeah, but I want it though. And then you'll go and do loads of like due diligence on the plant for me to decide. You'll dig in, yeah. You'll oh my god, these plant puns. Send help. You'll dig into it and basically find out whether you can do that or not. Or on your search, you'll be like, well, actually, I found something better. And yeah, that's always been really fun for me. Like I learn through you as well, because you're better at researching stuff and then explaining it to me, and then that's how I tend to absorb like information.
Yeah, and you've done so well in like I feel like you're really like learning these names, and the information really sticks. Like I was really surprised the other day not the other day, but the other week when I was talking about fenestration on the Monstera leaves, like the Swiss cheese like patterning on each leaf, like the lobes of each leaf. That's called fenestration. And like I only talked about it 1 or 2 times, saying, "Oh, look at this fenestration! It's really cool, the new leaf." And yeah, Lauren's like, "Oh yeah, look at the fenestration on this one." Like a week later, and it's like you absorb things so fast.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's easy because you make it like such a natural part of like teaching me about things that it just, when I learn it from you, it just becomes part of what it is. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not like. Because I've personally find like kind of doing research and stuff like that kind of taxing, and it kind of bores me. And that's just how I've always been. But when you're explaining something in the process of us trying to achieve a goal, whether that's like, you know, grow something or plant something or like propagate, or like how what we did with the all of our garden is grown completely from seeds. We didn't really buy any plugs or anything. When you were like, okay, well, what we should do is we put these seeds in the water overnight and get them going, and then there'll be a better chance that they'll take. And I didn't even think twice. Like, why would I would have just normally just seeds in, done, gone. But you know, the way you explained that to me made total sense, and now I feel like I know much more. So yeah, that process is called imbibing. It's the process of breaking. There's many ways you can break seed dormancy, but one of them is to make the seed soak up loads of water and make it think that the ideal environment has arrived for it to start sprouting, sort of thing. So you can do that also by just keeping the soil moist once it's actually been planted, but just like keeping it soaked properly for 24 hours just means that you've got that extra percentage chance of it germinating successfully. Because we just put them in like little glasses of water, but what I've seen you can do online is people like soak kind of like tissue paper or like kitchen roll, really, and then they put the seeds on there, and then they put it over, and then they spray it over, and then they kind of try and grow them in there. Because I remember that's what you used to do as a kid in school, isn't it? Really, it's like, we'll put a seed in some cotton wool, and then it'll grow, and it'll be like, how does it grow without soil? And it's like, yeah, how does it? I don't know. It just thinks it's ready.
Well, the thing is like the seed, orchid seed is different. So
not all seeds.
Not all seeds, yeah. So most vegetable seeds, they have all the nutrients and the totipotency unlocked within that seed to create everything they need to produce a plant. It's only once they've like started producing their really big leaves that they actually need nutrients and from the soil. And you can grow things in water if you want, as long as you put like a nutrient mix in there.
Like, lots of people grow things like hydroponically.
That's it.
See, I do know some stuff, and like I from what I understand, because it's something that confused me as well. It's like, well, how did, because I thought that the soil was the thing that provided the nutrients to the plant. How do you get that with like tap water? But obviously you get a special feed for plants growing hydroponically so that they can get all them nutrients.
That's it.
Yay! And you can and that's becoming like so much more common now, because you can just buy those from IKEA, like hydroponics kits where you just like pop the little plants in, and they've got like the little rope that touches down to the water, and or they can just grow their roots directly into the water.
Yeah.
And they've got like the little LED light on.
But that requires a lot more thought in regards to like you need to plan the fertilizing. You need to plan, like, you need to be aware of how much water it takes a lot more maintenance. I know you'd think, oh yeah, just put it in water, it's less maintenance, but like if you underestimate just how much water it's taking up now and then, you can kill a plant pretty quickly. And cleaning as well, like you need to clean it every so often as well, because I need to check the plant's water, because like you don't want any algae buildup or anything like that.
Oh, of course, yeah, because that would definitely happen especially if it was in the sunlight. Yeah,
definitely. So they're a lot less resilient, I feel, in those kind of situations. But if you're not a fan of like scarab fly or other kind of pests, then that might be the ideal environment for you.
And touching on the pests thing as well, like that's something that I've like learned massively from just being around you and you having your knowledge of pest control, because my learning from people from Instagram and YouTube and stuff, it's like no one ever really goes into the realities of caring for a plant over time, because I don't find that there's any discussions about like pest control or like what happens when you see the signs of like kind of like pests and things like that. And I think that, by the time you've already got that problem, that you know what search terms to look for because you're searching for basically like these symptoms. Whereas we, like with you, like we can take preventative measures, and things don't just like grow perfectly all the time. You're always going to encounter problems, but like having that knowledge that you bring really helps, because you always catch stuff before it is a problem.
Nip it in the bud.
Nip it in the bud. God damn it.
With pest management, I'm not going to go into it in this episode, but like
you get so excited about pest management. That is something that riles you up so much.
Integrated pest management.
Integrated your IPM.
Yep, and IPM. Early detection is key. A lot of the times that people will post these like
Spider-Mite horror stories.
Well, just like whenever you see, like, I'm on Plant Clinic on Reddit, for example, and whenever there's a pest story on there, it's like, oh, what's eating my plant? It's like, it's always like infestation levels of like pests.
How did you let it get this bad?
Well, no, I mean, people until the plant goes yellow, because it's like all the pests attack the underside of the leaves, because it's like softer tissue on the undersides. Like, you don't notice them until they're quite bad,
until the plant is already like, I'm dead.
That's it. Like, to the normal person without any specific plant knowledge, it's likely that they don't notice it until the leaves start showing like morphological change. Like, and that's fair. But yeah, regular checks on your houseplants, like checking out the undersides of the leaves, checking the health of the plant, like knowing what kind of mottling to look for in the leaf, like it all contributes to ensuring that you don't have to go through.
And that's the same with indoor plants as well. Like, there's lots of problems you can catch with like indoor plants.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And yeah,
because you would think like, well, my plant has literally lived in this pot on my kitchen counter for its entire life. How is it that this pest XYZ has like even managed to reach it? And it's like they just find you, man.
Well, normally it's like the well, with aphids they just find you. No
matter where you are, aphids will find your...
Well, native pests are very likely to sort of like attack your crops or houseplants sort of thing. But like things like red spider mite, two-spotted spider mite, the mealybug, the scale, they're going to come from the nurseries you purchase the plants from.
Oh, so they're just problems that the plants bring with them.
That's exactly it, yeah. So
okay, that makes more sense.
So it may not, when you first check your plant, it may seem pest-free, but it'll be in the soil. So like there'll be eggs in the soil or like in the plant in like really inaccessible places. So like mealybugs love to colonize the leaf sheaths and like the really sort of like the so like the inaccessible areas that you can't see.
Oh my god.
They'll colonize them really small areas.
Real hidden danger.
That's it. So that's why like checking your plants frequently can be, and quarantining the plants that come into your home.
Oh, so you don't just put them with your new plant collection.
Exactly.
Straight from the nursery.
If you've got 100 plants, you make sure that any new purchases are just like separate from the rest, and you just see what happens to them. Like it might be like mealybugs come up and say a little hello. That happened to one of my orchids I bought. Like I was like, oh, I'm so clever. I bought this like half price orchid, and like for a really good deal, dirt cheap, and it's like it's got a flower bud. It's got like 4 flower buds, but they didn't think that it was going to flower. I can make a flower.
Yeah.
Of course, as soon as the flower opened, I just saw the mealybugs like come out like, hello.
Oh my god.
And I was just like, okay, it's gone.
It's gone, yeah.
Not the plant. I didn't throw the plant away. I just snipped the whole flower stalk and thought, I can wait 10 months. I don't really care. I'm in no rush.
You can wait with your leaf and stick.
I think orchids not in bloom are quite beautiful.
I'm looking at one right now, and I wouldn't use the word beautiful to describe it.
And they're so interesting as well. It's like you can see all the little shoots on the leaves, and the roots are really cool. Like they're so different to anything else in the plant kingdom.
I'm very happy that you have a passion for it, because it is nice to see you.
And then you'll be like, and it's like, oh, what's that nubbin there? Because that's a botanical term I learnt from Lauren.
Oh yeah, the nubbins.
And it's like, oh, it looks like a shoot, and then like you watch it develop. And you're like, oh, it might be a flower stalk. And then it's like, no, it's just another root.
It's just another root,
It's the potential.
That's the orchid life, isn't it? When you trim back the flower stem, which is what you do. You just cut them stems off. You don't like them, do you?
Yeah, personally, I don't like the flower stems. With Phalaenopsis, which is the moth orchids, which you see in the supermarkets everywhere, there is a chance that the flower stalk will actually produce like a new baby on one of the nodes. So that's called a keiki. You asked me about this last
Keiki
week.
paste, yeah.
Keiki paste. So that induces keikis to form potentially, but it's no guarantee. But yeah, moth orchids produce them quite freely, more than any other orchid. And yeah.
We could totally do a whole episode on you talking about orchids, couldn't we?
I just don't like them, so off they go. Yeah.
Yeah. Just about how much you hate orchid stems, so you just trim them back, but also you love all orchids.
Yeah.
But you have a bit of a vendetta against moth orchids, which I think would be really funny to like get into.
Yeah, them painted orchids.
The basic bitch orchids.
No, I don't. I like Phalaenopsis. What I don't like is the blue ones that they dye.
Oh yeah, the fake
and those
ones.
like painted succulents. Ugh.
Yeah, if I have to
that.
see a spray painted succulent again, good lord.
Bet you nearly bought one, didn't you?
No, I would never. But yeah, so I think we have like a lot of like topics that we kind of want to discuss in like future episodes. I definitely want you to go in more depth in orchids, because I think orchids are those things that like everyone loves, because you see them in every single supermarket. You walk in the entrance to a supermarket and there's a rack of all these beautiful orchids in bloom, and then they drop off and you're like, is it dead? And like there's a lot to unpack there. And houseplants as well, and like buying houseplants, which is something that I'm quite interested in right now, because when you don't have to spend money on your commute, it's like, I have some spare money, maybe I should buy more plants. And how not to spend your money on plants by like propping plants you have, because we just keep propping all our plants now. Like, you've kind of helped me figure out how to do it, and that's been really fun too, because it's not just like increasing your collection, but it's like something to look forward to, like a little task. And
it's watching that progress as well.
Watching the progress, like, yeah, because it's like you get so invested in like, oh, will it survive, kind of thing. So yeah, I think that'll be really fun. And not to spoiler future episodes or anything, but like one of the things that I love when we're playing video games together is like Joe will often comment on the vegetation within the games, and like kind of like comment on like, is this would this vegetation exist in this climate, and like kind of what it is, and if it's based on something real or if it's made up, and like does the stem match the flower, or do the leaves match the flower? Like, is this match possible? Like, I think there's like so much to talk about in there, and it would be really cool to maybe like get a game artist on and find out like what their process is when they're creating kind of flowers and vegetation for games too. But yeah,
so there's a lot to unveil.
Ha ha ha. But yeah, I guess thank you for joining us. You may have noticed that our side light is just switched off, so I think it's time to end this episode, because that's the cue to leave. But yeah, this is actually the second time of us recording this episode, our introductory episode. We had a mic malfunction, because you may have noticed we're not the most technically savvy people when it comes to like audio visual equipment. So this is a big learning process for us as well. But I'm gonna put in a little clip of like some of the stuff that we went over, and you can hear just like how bad the audio is on that, because it's just like, well, I'll just let you listen to it anyway.
There's over 30,000 species of orchids. It's the second most abundant plant family in the world. The
first to what? Grass?
Yeah, actually, have a guess as to what is the most abundant in species. Grass is pretty... the top 5.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a guess?
Okay, so it's not grass. Orchid is number 2.
Orchid's number 2.
What the hell is
okay,
it?
It's
moss.
No. Moss isn't typically a plant family. It's a lower... you minding me? So yeah. Mosses are bryophytes, so they're a lower order of plants.
Wow, that's freaking rude.
Because they can't flower.
How dare you say they're lower than plants?
Well, they are. And you know what? Like, not many botanic gardens in the world actually keep a collection of bryophytes because they believe it to be below them.
So that was pretty disappointing when we got to the end of our 45-minute video to find out that it sounded like that. Hopefully this one won't, and hopefully the one mic situation isn't too uncomfortable. And if you made it to this far in the video, then I guess
Like and subscribe.
Like, no, that's not what I was gonna say. No, I mean, obviously like and subscribe, but like I was gonna say that you know, if you made it this far, thank you very much for sitting with us, and I hope you join us for the next episode. And yeah.
Until next time.
Keep
blooming and growing.
Oh no, we'll work on the catchphrase anyway. Thanks. Bye.